I'm recording this on March 27th, but I first saw this article yesterday on the 26th. And this little gem, I I chose it because it kind of went hand in hand. The article I just did about, or not the article, the video I just did about the Esquire article, about Rings of Power and what could possibly happen in season two. So, how they relate. The creative bankruptcy, because that, like, if there's one problem that I have, modern media, modern storytelling, it is it's literally that. It is the creative bankruptcy that is going around. And in that creative bankruptcy, instead of people, biting the bullet and putting in the work to create their own things, they instead want to take someone else's work and they want to take someone else's work and they want to steal it and they want to call it their own. And then as someone, because I that's kind of what I said on Twitter about this article, and someone else pointed out, and then they want to get angry at you when you don't agree with them. And absolutely, that is the point. You know, we're living in this day, like we're living in this age where stories can't just be stories. Weird, like weirdos feel like they have to come in and they have to claim something. And I can't, at this point, I can't even count or even remember how many times I've seen, you know, articles or mentions on Twitter or something like that, where it's mentioned that some character that is not who the LGBT community thinks that they are has somehow become an icon for that community. And because that character has become an icon for that community, all canon must now change to fit the narrative they now want to spin. And so, we now have like, I mean, it's more than a bit ridiculous, but now we're trying to do that with Sam and Frodo because obviously males cannot be like I don't understand this concept, because feminism will tell you that women need to stick together, women need to like each other, women must be friends because we're all women. But somehow, if two guys are friends, that means they're gay. And it is the silliest notion. But it goes back to it goes back to the thievery. Like overall, I would say this article is not this article is not well, it's worth the read in that, you know, the author, John F. Trent, he goes into the lore and goes into exactly what Tolkien said. So yeah, it is the point of, you know, someone pointed out kind of the ridiculousness of modern day storytelling and basically saying that, if the Lord of the Rings was made today, which I'm kind of like, please don't give Warner Brothers any idea because who knows what they'll do. But if the films were made today, Aragorn would have been a woman, but Arwen would have also still been a woman. So it would have been a lesbian relationship, and Frodo and Sam would have been gay. Gandalf Black, and the only white male actors in the entire cast would have been Denethor, Rima, and of course Saruman. Of course, the evil ones would have to be the white men. I think that's that has become that has become a form of gospel that just I feel like it needs to go away because it really kind of it cheapens storytelling. It cheapens storytelling because, like, if I'm watching a movie and I've gone through this, I'm watching a movie and you have quote unquote the diverse cast they always want you to have. And you see the young white male and he just looks like a regular individual. you know that he's going to be the villain. So when he becomes the villain at the end, you're not surprised at all. And you're in fact annoyed because it's basically you can see the story coming a mile away, which makes it a very uninteresting story. And that's kind of what Hollywood has just been doing. Just this thoroughly uninteresting story. So the thing, of course, that started off as just a joke because I'm because obviously this was a joke that someone said. So of course the response to that is, of course, well, no, no, no. Sam and Frodo, no, of course they're gay because they're gay we think because we think that they have to be because that's what we want them to be because there's that togetherness and you know they have to be, and these are people that haven't, these are people who have not watched, they have not even watched the movies, The Lord of the Rings. They certainly haven't read Tolkien. Like they, so I'm not even gonna. I think with this article in particular, like the other one upset me because it's very much nefarious in nature. This idea that we are going to treat our ignorance about Tolkien as if it's a plus, and we're going to try to convince you because they're trying to convince people that that atrocity is somehow canon. This doesn't irritate me as much because it's just a bunch of people who aren't interested in Tolkien who at best likely just read a bunch of YA novels. Like at best, you know, it's basically it's basically foolishness. A bunch of people who don't know what they're talking about are coming out of the woodworks thinking that they can convince you otherwise. And they think that they can because they just want it to be the case. And, it's not going to work because when you read it, it's not going to work. But what happens is that kind of danger outside of, and that kind of really is the problem, that danger outside of, because you have Warner Brothers who is talking about redoing the, and, you know, and I kind of had that bit of fear because it's like, are we going to start hearing those buzzwords? You know, the world as it is today. Like this movie reflects the world as it is today. Or like, are we going to hear diversity, inclusion? Like, are we going to hear those things, like those buzzword things that basically says all creativity went out the window for the sake of politics? Because that's essentially what it is. We're killing creativity for the sake of politics. And yeah, I don't like to see it. That's why I found this article kind of entertaining, but I don't really have much to say because it goes back to, if you read Tolkien's work, you know better. I will just go a little bit into the kind of the answer. So what I like about, like I said, like what I like about John Trent is that he will go into the text itself and use Tolkien's own words, you know, with context to make sure that it is understood what he meant. So yes, we know that Sam got married. We know that he got married. We know he had children. Like we know that the relationship that and he and Frodo had was a different sort of relationship. And so in the article, John talks about how Tolkien essentially mentioned that it was kind of meant to be a reflection of those sort of military relationships that came out of that World War era. So it was essentially the point of, you had the officer, and then of course, you had their, not underling, but you had the people who were under them, and that was kind of the thing. Frodo was the the officer, and you know Sam's the regular soldier. And of course, like I remember seeing Peter Jackson's movie They Shall Never Grow Old. I like so recommended. It basically is. You had a lot of people who were made officers that weren't qualified to become officers, and they didn't have the age, they didn't have the experience, they didn't know what they were doing. And so essentially, when he wrote this and he wrote the relationship between Sam and Frodo, that's what he was thinking. Sam would have more of the experience. That's why toward the end, he's carrying along Frodo because Frodo was really kind of ill equipped for the job. So by the time the pressure begins to build, Frodo is then having that breakdown, and then he needs Sam to come in with his strength to help him cross the finish line, so to speak. And that was really the point and purpose. And if you watch the film, that literally is the point and purpose, and you know that that's the point. So it just it doesn't baffle me. It doesn't baffle me that these things keep happening where there's this misinterpretation, because this article even says it itself. You have these people who have this agenda, and they will keep pushing that agenda with the intent to get their way. And yeah, that it is malicious. And I will say it is malicious, but I think randos on Twitter being malicious is different from media being malicious, and the showrunners being malicious. Because, like, the randos on Twitter, you can easily ignore. You can ignore their silliness. You know they're talking out of their rear end. So there's no danger there. But when it comes to the showrunners, when it comes to, when it comes to studios, when it comes to articles, when it comes to all of that, there is there is this inherent power that goes with what they're doing that makes what they're doing a lot more dangerous, because these are people that can turn around and they can change the story to fit their narrative. And you know and whether it is a success or not, it forever taints what came before it. I think Star Wars, you can no longer fully enjoy the original trilogy without the taint of the Disney sequels. Or I refuse to call them the Disney sequels, but the Disney trilogy, without the taint of the Disney trilogy, because that's out there. And because for now forevermore, they missed that chance to put Han, Luke, and Leia together. And because they did not take that chance, and they did that maliciously, because I will go on record, that was a malicious intent that they did. Because they did that, you have now destroyed anything beautiful. And yeah, we can ignore that they exist, because I frequently ignore that they exist, but they still existed. And I feel like when it comes to things like this, like, the problem is, I can't ignore that Rings of Power exists. I can't stand it. I'm still kind of like, I really don't want to watch it. I really don't. Like, I don't even want to give them a hate watch kind of thing. Like, I'm to a degree, I'm kind of like it's beneficial that my channel is small and not at a place at all where I feel like I need to watch the show. But I'm kind of afraid at the same time that it might grow to that place where I'll have to watch the show. But it just, yeah, I am fearful about the road of storytelling, because what you see, what you see in this, especially when it comes to mainstream, what you see in this push is not proper storytelling. It's not it's not proper storytelling. It is basically an agenda push. And, like, you have a lot of young people growing up with this idea being what it is. Like, to put it clearer, you have young people growing up thinking that this bad storytelling is actual good storytelling. Because while they are being shown as bad storytelling, these same agenda driven people are going out of their way to try to scrub the good storytelling out of existence. And so it kind of becomes this thing of, if real creatives don't fight, if they don't put up that fight, if they don't go out and produce good content, if they don't, you know, if they don't fight that hard fight, we could be in a place where we don't have good storytelling, and we could have nothing but misery. And I personally, I can't, I just can't have that. So yeah, I'm probably gonna end the video here. I think I said that before, but yeah, I just like I just wanted I mean, I really kind of wanted to calm down from the kind of frustration I had with the Esquire article. But, you know, this is kind of hopefully a little lighter, but still terrifying, of course. But yeah, I mean, that basically just says the time that we're in and the importance of actually getting out there and being creative if you are creative. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. If you listened this long, thanks for listening. Or yeah, thanks for listening. And I will see you on the next video. Bye.